Question 23 is a most strongly supported question, as these three words most strongly support suggest. This is in contrast to question 22. So they did like sort of a quick back-to-back 22, 23, both using the same words, but 22 was a strengthening, and this is actually most strongly supported. So I think that they were trying something there. But anyway, let's take a look at this. We have a developing country can substantially increase its economic growth if, oh great, so you put if in the middle of the sentence again. I really wish they would just start putting like, when you write, if you actually mean to be clear, just always put the if in the beginning of a sentence, right? I mean, if this were like a third grade grammar kind of thing, I would give this person an F for writing like this. Anyway, so if business people are willing to invest in modern industries that have not yet been pursued there, so I don't know what you want to, how about just a big I to represent all this idea, right? If business people are actually willing to invest in new industries, new modern industries that don't exist there in developing countries, then a developing country can substantially increase its economic growth. So substantially increase economic growth, something like this, right? Now, this is a sufficient condition. Now, if I were to ask you, okay, let's take a look at a poor developing country in sub-Saharan Africa. Let's try to get that country to substantially increase economic growth. How can we do it? Well, you're like, one sufficient condition is to get business people to become willing to invest in modern industries and not even pursue there, like cell technology, right? Cell towers, right? Or modern cars, electric cars, solar power cars, right? Whatever these modern industries don't exist yet. Now, is that the only way to? No, it's not. It's not the only way, right? This is a sufficient condition. Okay, so. But being the first to invest, now see, they're now commenting on this condition, right? Being the first to invest is a callback, is referent to this willing investment, right? It's a referential phrase. But being the first to invest, because they don't exist, they're the first, is very risky. So now they just say, but this sufficient condition, their willingness to invest, but I'm going to comment on this, right? It's risky. And moreover, business people have little incentive to take this risk. Not only is it risky, there's low incentive. Why? Why is there a little incentive? Because if the business actually succeeds, many people will just crowd the market and cut into their profits. Competition will go up and cut their profits. See, these two things are just commentary on this idea, right? On the sufficiency idea. If business people are willing to invest, then we can significantly increase economic growth. And actually, hold on a second, right? This thing, I'm not sure if this thing's actually going to happen. Why? Because it's risky and there's little incentive for people to take that risk. So basically, at the end of this, we're left with, here's one sufficient condition for this to happen, but chances of this happening is slim, right? Because of all these reasons. So, all right, what's most strongly supported from this? Once a developing country has at least one business in a modern industry, right? Let's say solar, right? Solar power cars. Further investment in that industry, solar power cars, a second company, solar power cars, will not contribute to that. Why? Why will it not contribute? What about this tells us that one solar power car company and now a second solar power car company will not contribute? That just seems false. I mean, this seems to run against common sense even. I mean, certainly everything in here is silent about this, right? But it just as a standalone, I don't get it. B says, in developing countries, there's a greater competition within modern industries than within traditional ones. Why? I mean, in fact, this seems just actually patently false, right? I mean, depending on which modern industry you're talking about. Here we know that, look, modern industries have not yet been pursued there. That means it doesn't exist. If it doesn't even exist, how can there be greater competition within a thing that doesn't exist? There's no competition, right? B's kind of crazy too. C says a developing country can increase its prospects for economic growth, right? Increase its prospects, improve the odds for economic growth. See, if you improve the odds for significant economic growth, then you certainly improve your odds for economic growth, right? I mean, of course. So now, how can we improve our odds for significant economic growth? Well, what if you make it a little less risky? What if you provide a little more incentive? See, because here's a clear sufficiency condition for this, right? It's just, we talked about how the sufficiency condition likely won't happen. So what if you made it a little more likely to happen? What if you made the sufficiency condition a little more likely to trigger? Then you make it a little more likely to experience significant economic growth, which you do make it more likely to experience economic growth by providing added incentive for investment in modern industry that has not been there yet. See, little incentive. Oh, let's add to an incentive. Let's get rid of one of these problems, right? That's great. C is great. D is a pretty classic cookie cutter trap wrong answer choice. It's backwards, right? It says a developing country will not experience growth unless group 3 negates sufficient, right? Get rid of this not. Country experience economic growth, sufficiency condition, something like this, right? Points over to its business people investment, something like the I, right? So something like this thing pointing to something like this thing. So I think the error that I'm calling out, the cookie cutter error, is the arrow, right? It's pointing backwards. E says investments in a modern industry in developing countries carry little risk as long as the country has at least one other business in that industry. Man, like it's a significant risk to be the first mover. E is saying, oh, well, then if you're the second mover, there's no risk, right? There's little risk. It's incredibly presumptuous.